Hello, this is astrologer coach Sonia Francis, and today we're going to be talking about a very powerful new moon, which will occur on April 8th at 2:21 p.m. New York time and 7:21 p.m. London time. And it will be exact at 19 and a half degrees of Aries. And this powerful new moon is also a solar eclipse. And so this is marking a new moon cycle, but also a new eclipse cycle. And we've been in eclipse season since March 15th already. And this eclipse season will continue until April 18th. And we are encouraged to become conscious creators and be mindful of how our thoughts and choices impact our personal and collective experiences. And so as best as you can, trust that whatever is leaving is making space for something better at this time. Stay grounded and flexible, and don't jump the gun for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Observe any urges to take action unless something happens organically in your life, then allow that to happen. But if you are at all ambivalent about something, whether you should take action or not, hold off until the end of eclipse season on April 18th. So obviously we already had an eclipse before this solar eclipse, which was the lunar eclipse. And so this is the second eclipse in a row. And solar eclipses are a little bit different from lunar eclipses. They're more about new beginnings. And solar eclipses are extra powerful new moons that happen approximately every 6 months. And the eclipse cycle that we're currently in, the longer term eclipse cycle in terms of the Aries Libra polarity, that eclipse cycle will be in effect until March 2025. And this is the first solar eclipse of this year and the second solar eclipse in Aries in this particular eclipse cycle. Now, the first solar eclipse in Aries connected to the current eclipse cycle was on April 20th of last year, 2023. And so you might want to take a look and see since then, what have you discovered about your physical vitality and self-identity since then? And where are you asked to get out of your comfort zone? And has this been a humbling experience so far? And then also this eclipse is a total solar eclipse and a supermoon. So double whammy. And this will be the third of 3 supermoons in a row. And so as some of you know, we've talked about this in other new moon videos, supermoons occur when the moon is at its closest distance to the earth at the time of a new moon or full moon. And so they're much more powerful because the moon has more impact on us in those times. And the eclipse, which is a total eclipse, will be visible in North America. It's passing over Mexico, the United States, and Canada. And it will begin over the South Pacific Ocean and travel through Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Also, small parts of Tennessee and Michigan will also experience a total solar eclipse. And the eclipse will enter Canada in southern Ontario and continue through Quebec, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Cape Breton. And then at last it will exit continental North America on the Atlantic coast at Newfoundland, Canada. So this is where we can see the slice of that eclipse. But no matter where you are on the planet, the effects of the eclipse, energetically speaking, will be transformative globally, as they often correspond to significant endings and new beginnings. So eclipses happen every 19 years in the same sign and degree. And the last time we had a new moon solar eclipse that occurred in this particular degree and sign was on April 8th, 2005. And we are likely going to experience some kind of a resonance between now and that time. Obviously, it won't be completely the same because the planets are aligned a little bit differently in this particular eclipse. But you can think back to the spring of 2005 and just ask yourself, were there any significant endings or beginnings in my life at that time? and what was important to me back then. And if I were to take those priorities to the next level, where would that be? Where would I be able to take them? Now, if you want to have more guidance on those questions, it's best to take a look at your natal chart, because the house placement of the eclipse, where it lands in your birth chart, will indicate which area of life is the readiest to embrace a healthy sense of self and rise to a new level of consciousness around independence, forging our path gently and holistically speaking. Now, feel free to also watch my webinar, Eclipse Season and the Mercury Retrograde, to see how the eclipses impact your own birth chart in more detail, and also how to do that, how to look that up. There will be a link below this video so you can get this powerful webinar for yourself if you're interested. And if you are a star member of my online community already, check your inbox or your junk folder for the email that you received on March 22nd. All right, and if you don't have the email, let me know right away. All right, eclipses are a time of clarification and affirming our highest path, because eclipses help us delete old programming and allow us to download new ones that serve our soul's evolution. And this is particularly true for our relationship with our human identity and our sense of agency in the world. In other words, how capable we feel to get things done. And this begins with our role also in our interactions with other people, whether we can be direct about our personal goals and passions, whether we can be honest about it, and also whether we can inspire others to follow our example. Can we fully live our passion and be an inspiration to other people? Now, solar eclipses are also an excellent time to go within and seed anything we would like to integrate and understand better about ourselves over the next 6 months until the next solar eclipse takes place, which will be on October 2nd, 2024 in this case. And we'll dig into this in much more detail towards the end of this video, and when we talk about setting solar eclipse intentions. Please remember that setting intentions for solar eclipses is a little bit different from a regular new moon, so stay tuned if you want to hear about that. And also, during an eclipse, the sun and moon are connected to one of the moon nodes. And so depending on whether it's the north node or the south node, we will experience the eclipse differently. Now, this is a north node eclipse, and those encourage an exploration of energy that promotes our soul's evolution. We are invited to work with the lighter and higher frequencies of the sign that the north node is in. In this case, that's Aries. And eclipses are also turning points on our soul's journey. So often, that's why they're often marked by critical shifts, and they're nudging us to change or to grow at the time of the eclipse. And if we're not able to change or grow, then we might face more significant difficulties at the next turning point, which in this case, the next turning point will be on July 10th, 11th, when the sun is in 19.5 degrees of Cancer and squares this solar eclipse degree. Now, a couple of things to note for this solar eclipse chart. The sun and moon align with the north node Chiron and a retrograde Mercury in Aries. So there's quite a lineup in Aries. Venus will also be in Aries, a little bit earlier degree at the time of the eclipse. And Venus makes a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. Mars, which is the ruler of Aries, is currently in Pisces and aligns very closely with Saturn, which has been in Pisces for a while now and will be for another year. Obviously, we will talk about all this in greater detail, but before we go any further, let's first talk about the sign of Aries and see what this eclipse energy promotes and where we need to focus. So this solar eclipse in pioneering, fast-paced Aries focuses more on our independence and dynamicism. You could say that we seek a healthier relationship with ourselves, a relationship which we're neither too caught up in our passions and enthusiasm for life, nor are we too divorced from those feelings and those pursuits. So really finding a way to have like a healthy relationship to ourselves, to our passions, to our enthusiasm, and to our pursuits. Now, whether or not we have natal planets or points in Aries in our own birth chart, we do have Aries somewhere. Somewhere in our birth chart, you will find the Aries energy located. And wherever that is in our birth chart, that represents that we seek to develop a courageous heart and discover what we are capable of in pursuing our passions. So that area of life, obviously with Aries, is highlighted for this eclipse. Now we're asked to be unafraid to embrace who we are and inspire others by forging our own path. So what you can ask yourself with this solar eclipse, and also for the next 6 months, where am I being called to take a risk and try something new? Maybe even come from a place of beginner's mind, allowing ourselves to look at certain things in a way that we're meeting them for the first time. And what is the next step towards becoming an increasingly healthy, strong, and independent person who is unafraid to pursue personal goals and desires? And also, maybe also a person who speaks up for what needs healing in our society around the toxic masculine. Or if we're not able to speak up out there in the world, how can we speak up about what needs healing in our own lives, or, within our own communities or within our own home around the toxic masculine? And this eclipse helps us be more aware of how passionate we are about life, or what's missing to get us back on track with our passion or with our passion projects. Now, let's talk about some of the aspects of this solar eclipse chart. The sun and moon align with the North Node Chiron and the retrograde Mercury in Aries, like I mentioned already earlier. And this tight lineup of planets and the North Node in Aries, that strongly emphasizes doing our individual healing around the masculine energy in our own world. And we may feel more physically sensitive or humbled by our current human journey. And it would be really good if we could remind ourselves to see ourselves and everyone else out there as human. And of course, human means that we're learning, we're growing, we're all here to evolve, to be on a path. And so that means we're not yet complete, we're not yet perfect. And that's what being human means. We make mistakes. And so compassion and love and understanding are really helpful and also required, individually and collectively speaking, if we want to move our relationship with the masculine to a much higher vibrational place. And obviously, when I talk about the masculine energy, this is not gender specific. Everyone has masculine inside of them. Now, obviously, this can be a very humbling experience, especially in our Western society where we are very focused on the masculine energies. And so we need to approach the masculine in a new way and be more humble and compassionate in connection with the masculine energies. So what you can ask yourself here is, could I show the world by example what it looks like to be a humble and compassionate leader who inspires and doesn't judge? And with Mercury involved here, we also need to think about how to best talk about our childhood or ancestral wounding. Because when we share and open up about what feels uncomfortable or where we have felt separate from others or wounded, when we talk about our triggers, we can take another step towards feeling more whole. And that is a big part of the healing process. Being able to talk about it, being able to be witnessed as we're sharing these sensitive things about ourselves is very powerful in the healing process. So ask yourself, could I give myself 5% more permission to be imperfect? And could I acknowledge my sensitivities that stem from past wounding? And could I love myself because of those so-called imperfections and sensitivities? And what might change if I stopped trying to fix myself? What we often try to do with our own wounds and insecurities is we try to fix them. We try to manage them. We try to, change them so we're more like everybody else. But what if that wasn't required? What if that is actually not helpful? So what might change if I stopped trying to fix myself? And then double check, does blaming or judging myself for being imperfect or overly sensitive serve me? Has that ever helped me in any way? And how about when I do that to other people? Does that serve? Has it ever helped to do that? And who is really served when we judge, when we blame? Feel free to obviously journal on these questions. Feel free to meditate on these questions. Feel free to just sit with the questions and allow the answers to come to you. These questions are really there for us to get in alignment with the energies, not to have the answers, but to really feel into what the energy is all about for this eclipse and for these aspects. Now, since Mercury is also in its retrograde phase at the time of the eclipse, because the retrograde phase started on April 1st and will last until April 25th, we may need to take note of things that come up right now and come back to them when Mercury is in its post-shadow phase, after the retrograde phase has ended. And if some of these jargons don't make sense to you, then feel free to take a look at my webinar where I talked about that in more detail and explained it with graphics and visuals and everything, so you can really understand it better. And again, there's going to be a link below this video for you to purchase that if you don't have access to that yet. Now let's talk about Mars, the ruler of Aries, very important planet for the solar eclipse chart, since there are so many planets in Aries in particular. And Mars is currently in Pisces and is making a very close alignment to Saturn, also in Pisces. So this conjunction adds a message to take it slow and steady and focus on a spiritual understanding of ourselves and life. If we want to make progress right now, and we might feel that urge to move forward with all that Aries energy, because Aries wants to move fast. But if we want to make progress right now, we really need to take it one step at a time, and we need to tune inward. So ask yourself, how present can I allow myself to be right now? And what's in the way of my achieving being present? And where am I taking things slow and heeding my intuitive knowing pay off down the line? And if you don't know yet how to do that, practice. See if you can practice tuning in and listening to that subtle sensing inside of you, those subtle voices inside of you. They don't come from here. They come from a more heartfelt place. And as best as you can, be sure to have a solid connection to your intuitive self before zooming ahead. So Saturn, of course, says practice, get good at this before you move forward. So in other words, go within before going without. And so you can ask yourself here is, where do I experience flow in my life already? And how might I achieve 5% more flow in my life, in other places? And if the flow knows where to go, could I simply trust where it takes me? And what is getting in the way of me trusting the flow of life? Again, with Saturn there, right? Mars and Saturn there is a needing to investigate that Pisces energy. But also with Saturn, we have to sort of see, okay, what's so and what's not so, right? We have to, and that's why the questions are posed in where do I trust and where am I not trusting, right? And what's getting in the way of that? Because by just looking at that from a more practical, realistic level, we can maybe get better at allowing the trusting, allowing the flow to be there. Now, let's talk a little bit about Venus, which is also in Aries in this solar eclipse chart, and she is sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. And with Venus in Aries, there is a sense of spontaneity and independence that's really important to us and that we feel within our relationships. We also have more energy than usual, and we're more likely to want to get out of the house and be active with other people. And the sextile to Pluto in Aquarius is an opportunity to take a courageous and independent approach to social interactions with other people. So what we can ask ourselves here is, what if I saw the value of my impact on humanity as a collective? What if I saw my value? And what if I trusted that a process is unfolding towards greater empowerment in the world? And there's another question you can ask yourself here also, is if this was the best time to deepen certain relationships with like-minded people, who would I want to reach out to right now? Now, feel free to sit with these questions again. And the last thing I want to mention with this eclipse chart is that Jupiter and Uranus are both currently in Taurus and have been since last year. And they are moving closer and closer towards each other. And they will reach their exact conjunction on April 20th at 22 degrees of Taurus, at which point they will start a new 14-year cycle. So we're right at the very end of that last cycle to finish and the new cycle to begin. And the last Jupiter-Uranus cycle started on June 8th, 2010 in 0 degrees of Aries. And that cycle, of course, is now coming to an end. And this new cycle that starts on April 20th brings more focus on our relationship to the physical realm and its enjoyment, because it's in Taurus. So honoring ourselves and our values is very much emphasized here with Taurus, as is breaking away from old habits and ways of connecting with the physical realm that we have outgrown or that we need to change. And this is particularly true, of course, with anything connected to the physical realm, which is our body, our finances, our planetary home, our land that we build on or that we live on, etc., all these physical things. And, a conjunction always represents a new beginning. So there's something new that we're seeding when two planets come together. And Jupiter and Uranus coming together will represent radical leaps in our thinking and culture and breakthroughs in science. So we're bound to experience some sudden shifts in relationship to the physical world, individually speaking and collectively speaking. And the last time these two planets aligned in Taurus was a really long time ago, in May 1941, in 24.5 degrees of Taurus. So a similar degree, and a very, very long time ago during the Second World War. And we will talk in more detail about this powerful alignment in our next forecasting forum on Wednesday, April 24th. So feel free to join us live or watch the recording later, whatever works best. This alignment in Taurus will also be discussed in the next Solidity Today morning show, Hot Astrology Friday, which will be live on April 19th, or you can watch it as a replay. And feel free to get the links to both of those events below this video if you're curious, if you're interested, if you want to know how to connect with that in your own chart and what that all means. But yeah, so to sum it all up though, for this powerful solar eclipse, being open to trusting the process and keeping our hearts courageously open is really vital for the next 6 months. This eclipse in Aries invites us to be brave and alive to life's possibilities, embrace our own humanity, and get out of our comfort zones to pursue emotional satisfaction, something that we feel passionate about. Again, flexibility and open-mindedness are crucial, especially during eclipse season. Noticing when you're digging your heels in about something is usually a sign that you have some underlying anxiety about something else. So pay attention to that. When you notice this, take a deep breath, center yourself, close your eyes, focus on your third eye, allow the energy to move through. There is a lot downloading and a lot leaving. So allow that to happen. Eclipses are times of uncertainty. So sometimes we do feel really uncomfortable during eclipse season because they're Uranian in nature. So anything could really happen between now and the end of eclipse season. In particular, if the eclipse aligns with your birth chart more powerfully. So as best as you can, allow for new templates to download, stay centered and grounded from within, use conscious breathing, but also move into the observer position when it comes to your emotional and mental body. The more we can sort of like stay in this neutral place of like observing what we're experiencing, the easier the recalibration will be. And we're still going to be in eclipse season until April 18th. So that's how long this will last, this particular downloading of energies and recalibrating. And, since eclipses are so powerful, it's been my experience that it is best to give a bigger orb than with a regular moon when you're setting intentions. So I tend to use a 5-degree orb instead of a 2-degree orb. Some astrologer might disagree with me on that, but that's, in my experience, what works the best. And so since this solar eclipse takes place in 19.5 degrees of Aries, take a look in your own birth chart. Where do I have an ascendant, a career point, or any personal planets in 14 to 25 degrees of Aries, Libra, Cancer, or Capricorn? And if you do, then definitely this eclipse will impact you more strongly. But also if you have an ascendant or a sun sign in Leo or Cancer, because the sun rules Leo and the moon rules Cancer. So because the solar eclipse is a more powerful new moon, if you have a sun sign or ascendant in Leo or Cancer, you will definitely also be affected by all of the eclipses, really. So let's talk a little bit about setting intentions. Setting intentions is done a little bit differently from a regular new moon. One of the reasons is that you were setting intentions for the next 6 months for the whole eclipse cycle, rather than just for the next 28 days. So clearly, eclipse intentions are more powerful in that way. And you also want to make sure you set the eclipse intentions 48 hours after the eclipse becomes exact. And the reason for that is because of all the downloads that are coming through, the energy that's moving through is the strongest 48 hours before and after an eclipse. So we want to make sure that we take that time 48 hours before and after an eclipse to take it easy, to meditate, to tune in, to be in nature, take really good care of ourselves during that time and observe what we're experiencing, what's coming through. And then after the 48 hours, because that time can be quite intense, we want to just let that settle down and then set our eclipse intentions. And of course, it's still the best time to set intentions when there's no moon void, of course. So for this eclipse, the best and most potent times to set your solar eclipse intentions will be between 2:21 p.m. on April 10th until 6:04 a.m. on April 11th. And then again from 8:59 a.m. on April 11th until 2:21 p.m. on April 12th. And all of this is, of course, given in US Eastern Time, New York time zone. If you live in a different time zone than that, feel free to either convert the time zone for yourself or join me on my Facebook fan page or follow me on X or on Twitter. I will post reminders on those platforms when it is the perfect time to set your eclipse intentions so that when you read those reminders, when those pop up, sit down and write your intentions. If you want to hear a little bit about how to set eclipse intentions, there's an article that I will put a link below this video so you can click on that link. And just remember, make them powerful. Remember, they cover the next 6 months. And if possible, align them with the Aries energy and what we've talked about in this video, in this eclipse video. All right, so have a fantastic eclipse. I hope that you will experience some beautiful shifts that will help you and support you with your next level of your soul's journey. and be really kind and compassionate with yourself no matter what shows up. And yeah, if you do need more support, of course, feel free to reach out for a reading or for coaching healing session. I'm happy to support you in whichever way works best. All right, have a good one. I'll see you again either at the forum, at the radio show, or at the next video. Have a good one. I am astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.